Hello, I'm Carrie. Welcome or welcome back. Today I'm going to try to successfully film a deck modification. I've tried a couple times and it just wasn't a good setup previously, but I think we can do it here. We'll try. Okay, so I just got in the new Gaian tarot and all the cards are not cut to the same length. It's one of those boxes where the cards sit side by side, and rarely when I get cards like that are they all cut at the same time. So they're a little off and I want to fix that. The borders are large enough that I could de-gild this deck and not lose any of the art that overflows the edges of the deck. There are some pictures where there's like a lot of overflows, like her hand comes over and flowers come over, and I don't want to lose any of this, so I'm not going to, but I do want to make it a little bit smaller since the art itself is so much smaller than the last edition. Let's see how much space, smaller art. So I don't need that much border. It'll be easier to shuffle. It wasn't a thinner cardstock than the old one, so that was a bummer, but I'm going to fix it and make it something that I can use. So I'm going to trim down all four sides one at a time to get the gilding off. And then I'm gonna corner around it with one of these. And then I'm gonna do a green one of these and edge it. That is the plan. Okay, so first I wanna show you a couple of modifications that I've done in the past and like why you might wanna modify a deck. It does really help you like get to know the deck better when you spend that much time with it. For something like this one, the Awakening Tarot, I only edged it. So I used I can't remember if it was a marker or an ink pad, but it was one of those. And I just sat and put on a show I wanted to watch and piles of paper towel that I reuse and edged it and lay them out, let them dry. Yeah, so sometimes I'm only edging it like this one here. Sometimes I'm only changing the corner round. For this particular little roots and wings, there were just a couple cards that were cut like with a dull knife kind of thing. They were just a little jagged and I wanted to fix that. And the only way I could fix it was to use a slightly larger corner round. And I think it came out beautiful. So that's the only modification I did to this deck. Just gave it a little bit larger corner round. You can go larger, you can't go smaller with a corner. So I couldn't take something that was like this size and go to a smaller one. I have to go larger. Okay. Sometimes I'm taking the border off. This one had the copyright over here and I just really like it borderless. So I cut it on 3 sides and then corner rounded. I did not edge this one. Like the Gaian, this one had a gold gilding and I just modified it enough to trim off the gold gilding and then I edged it in black and love how this came out. Sometimes I'm trimming a deck, I'm doing all of it, right? So this I trimmed down to make it an even smaller pocket size. So it's lighter when I take it backpacking. So that's what I did. I took the pocket and I made it more pockety. And then I give it a nice corner round and then I edged it. So I did all the things to this one. And then sometimes I don't want to take the border off. I just want to make it smaller. So that's really what I did with my old Gaian. I got rid of the blue part and then I made the white part smaller just to make it more shuffleable. But for this deck, it wasn't about shuffleability. I just think it looked better proportionally like this. The borders were kind of big. So those are the reasons you might want to modify a deck. And these are the tools that you can use to do it. I know a lot of people use the smaller guillotine to cut their cards down, but that doesn't feel stable to me. I had this size of a guillotine. I got when my daughter was a baby so I could scrapbook. So I used it for a while and then it was just put away. And when I started modifying decks, I pulled it back out. I was happy to have the large one because I can tape down my triangle to get as close to a 90-degree angle as possible and have it all be taped on there and really sturdy. So I like using the large guillotine. My 20-year-old guillotine, when the blade went, you can't replace the blade. I don't even think that company was in business anymore. So I ran out and got this, and I really enjoy it. The upgrade with this one is that there's this guard for my fingers, so I don't have to worry about cutting my fingers off, which I did with the other one because there was not a guard. So I was just, not that you shouldn't be cautious, but right, I like having this extra guard, and you hold your card down with it and not cut your fingers off at the same time. So really like this upgrade from my old one. I use painter's tape to tape my triangle down to get that angle where I'm going to stick my card in here and take off just what I want right off the top of the card. This is nice and secure. It's not going anywhere. I use the same tape over and over again for like a few deck mods. And then when it seems to be less sticky, then I'll just change it out. But this is pretty new, so we're going to reuse it. And I pull it up so that the tape isn't dragging, so that, you know, I can get it where I want and then press it down. So we already looked at how I edge them, either ink pads or Tombow markers. Some people use Sharpies or other things. I haven't done that. This is just what I've used so far. I use a ruler to make sure when I have my card lined up and my blade up, and I'm not going to cut, but the table hangs over this guard, and between the guard and the blade is basically where the table is lined up and where my card is going to cut. So having the ruler helps you just make sure you're lined up pretty well. And then the nail file is for, sometimes you just get it like a jagged corner, and I will just file it down. So rarely do I use this, but sometimes it's handy to have. And then my corner rounds, I have 2 different corner rounds, and they each do 3 different sizes, and they're different from each other. So I think this is a 4mm for the medium, but on this one, the 4mm, it just says medium, but I'm pretty sure this is a 5mm. So they are all different. That gives me 6 options for making my corners. And that's what I use. All right, so we're gonna just degild and not lose any art is the plan. So, right, we don't want to lose any of that fire. So I'm definitely taking less than that off there. I want nice even borders as much as possible. And I am going to take, I'm going to take maybe a little bit extra off the bottom because it's a different size border than the rest of it anyway, just to make it a little bit easier to fit in my tiny hands. Yep, that's the plan. All right, so move those to the side. Let me pack these up and we'll come right back. Okay, so I'm ready to do my first side. I'm going to cut all the cards the same side, and then I'm going to move my triangle and cut all the cards on the same side, right? I usually save the bottom for last, especially when I'm contemplating, do I want to take it completely to be titleless or whatever. They are not on here evenly, right? Like there's a little bit more border, green border here than there is here, but that doesn't mean it's that way for every card. Here, the picture is a little bit more on this side than it is on that side. So I'm just kind of eyeballing it and trying to make it all line up and be the same. So they're all the same width and they're all the same height. That's my goal, and not losing any of the art, which I shouldn't because there's so much room on the border for the things that hang over. You know, I'm just going to take a little smidge. I do want to look first and make sure though, because the goal is to look at every card so we don't accidentally cut an orca's face off or a falcon's head off. Okay, so the orca is one of my main concerns. I know the gardener, the empress's foot hangs off a lot because I lost her toes and her elbow last time. Where is she? There's the artist. Self-portrait. So beautiful. Here she is. All right, she's totally safe. Okay, so we're gonna do the Empress or the Gardener first. This always makes me so nervous. I'm always like, leave it up, don't touch it, don't touch it. I'm looking over here and seeing how far over this is hanging. Not cutting toes off. I would rather take too little off and have to move the triangle twice than our toes are safe. All right, her toes are safe. I'm not going to move the blade yet. I'm going to tape this into place. Then we're going to double check. And I feel safe to cut now. Her toes are safe. And this is how much we're going to be taking off this side of all the cards. Just a sliver. I always really like to overdo it as far as getting it in there, holding it in place with my fingers. So I want to push it towards the triangle with the same amount of force basically for all the cards to try to get it as even as possible. Hold it down. Safe, Orca. All right, we're going to go through and do all of them that way on that side. Okay, I've removed the gilding from this one side of the deck and looks good. This is what I've taken off. I'm going to do this side next. So you want to always make sure everybody is facing the same direction because you wouldn't want to cut off the same side twice on a card and then still have to cut the gilding off the other side. And then you have to cut everybody down to the same size if you want them to be the same size. Okay, so just gonna take my tape up. Get it out of the way. I'm not really measuring. I'm eyeballing how much I want hanging over. So that's what gets chopped off. And once you line up your first one, all the others are gonna be the same, so. You could measure. Sometimes I do measure sometimes, and I use these measurements like, okay, I'm going to take that off. So let's look at it. What I do is I have my fingers up against the card and the edge. And then I just go a smidge over. You can use your piece you've already cut off from the other side and like put it between the table and the card and see how you're lining up. Maybe a smidge less. All right, I'm gonna look at that. Let's tape this down. Yeah, I think that's gonna be taken off actually a smidge less. But once I commit to it, that's it. We're committing to it. So let's go. That is the smidge we took off. The smidges we were taking off the other side. Okay, tiny bit bigger actually. But that's it, okay? Now I'm going to repeat that process on this side. Everybody is upside down or I'm not cutting it right. And the backs. So we're not going to lose any of the flowers from the top and bottom, but the sides were already a little cut off to begin with. So I think it's going to be great. All right, I've gotten the gilding off of both sides and it looks good, pretty even. And now we're going to do the top. So we're going to place the cards like this and just, again, degild the top. And then we'll flip it over and do that last side. All right, my triangle can slide around. All right, so I moved it 1 millimeter basically. Just a sliver. All right, let's keep going. Okay, my sides are much more even than where my top is right now. So before I get any further, I'm gonna go back in and take another smidge off the top because I don't like that right now. Okay, let's do that. See, I think that's what's happening. It's, I've been like accidentally, let's see if we can get closer, like pushing it up on this. There's a bit of a slope, right, on the triangle. And if you don't hold it down, it will come up on that lip just a little bit. And then we end up with a little bit longer ones and shorter ones. I believe that's what I have just done. So we're gonna, I want to take off a little bit. Not too much. Okay, I went back and fixed and, you know, repositioned my triangle and recut just a little off the top. And now that is much better. So a tip is, let me, a a tip is this plastic piece and this blade are not ever, I think, maybe in a much more expensive one it would be, like perfect 90-degree angle. My old one was worse than this, but I had it pressed up against here this way, and that works okay with this way because you're really focusing on this, and there might be a little wedge, right? It's not exactly lining up perfectly, but when you go to do the top, I recommend that you pick like a line that you want to keep it along, like this line right here, and not put it up in the corner because you're probably going to end up with some of them just a little bit off this way, okay? If that makes sense. So we've done 3 sides, the top and the 2 sides, and all we have left to cut off is the gilding on the bottom. And then we'll get to corner rounding. So yeah, nice, pretty even right now. Beautiful. So let's keep it that way for this last cut and not lose any word. Tape up. Yep. I think that's about right. But I'm going to check before I cut. Press this down. I think that looks good. So I did cut a little bit bigger piece off the bottom, but again, my goal is to make it more shuffleable without losing the words. All right. All right, I have cut the gilding off all 4 sides. We were real close, but did not lose any of the artwork. And we were real close, but did not lose any of the lettering. The 8s were real close, and Awakenings G, but it's all good. I recommend you measure. I rarely do, but sometimes it does backfire. I would have taken just a slight bit less off if I had really spent a little more time with it, but I'm happy with how it came out. I'm going to move this out of the way, and we're going to get to corner rounding next. Okay, so this is the modified 1st edition that I have. I just want to compare size wise. So just, it'll be hopefully a little bit easier to shuffle than this was. But the deck is like, it stands at the same thickness, unfortunately. I really like the new backs, although I also liked the other backs. So now I just want to see how round I want it. You can always go larger, but you can't go smaller. I kind of want to see it. So a little bit of a tip for the corner rounders. If you don't set it in there perfectly, sometimes it can almost feel like it fits, but it's just a little off. And then you end up cutting into a card where you wouldn't be losing that paper. So always just make sure it's sitting in there really well. They tend to sit better in this type than this type. And the place that I really run into trouble is when there's already some kind of a rounded corner there, because it's not going to sit as square because it's already has a rounded corner. Maybe you're just trying to make the corner bigger. Be extra cautious to make sure you're sitting in there just right and not cutting into your card. I'm going to try, look what I'm doing there. I'm going to use the medium, and I would actually go with the 4. I think this is a 5mm, but I'm going to not use this one because it is more likely to like turn on me. This one I just trust a little bit more. All right, that's what we're going with. That's my card. I actually had cut out papers, like if I wanted to test it beforehand. But I just decided to go for it, so I did. But that isn't a bad idea at all. If I had big enough scraps, you could test on that, but my scraps were so tiny I couldn't. But yeah, these are just bookmarks now. All right, remember, it's the medium. Okay, I've finished corner rounding, and my first edition and my second edition are now at the same point where they are trimmed down and re-corner round. I never did edge this one. I am going to edge this one, but I thought for anyone interested deciding whether they were going to get this one, like just comparing the two and how they look compared to one another. All right, I think the art pops a little bit more on this one, and I had a few minutes right after I got the deck of being really disappointed that the art was so shrunk down for this version compared to this one. But I'm over that. I really like the way it looks. I like it with the green border. And let's see how it shuffles. And the backs are very nice. I did get a nice clean length. The side is a little bit off, but it was off when I got it, so there we go. Yes, easier to shuffle than the other edition. Not much easier, but it is easier. This one's a little bit more cardboardy, I guess. All right, now for the edging. I only have these two greens and a real antique-y green. I really like the way this looks. I ran it over some paper. This is the lighter green alone. This is a coat of the dark green, then a coat of this on top of it. And this is just one coat of this green. So we're going to start with this. I may add that coat of the lighter one on top. We shall see. So I find something I really want to watch for a while, and I lay out paper towels and I just stack the cards up so that they can dry. And this is the bag it's going to go in, which is Catamancy Tarot, a Johnnicky bag. that is its bag. So I'll just use the pad. It is cleaner to do these, but this is what I have. So I just hold the pad and rub it along the side of it. Sometimes I can get it in one coat, but usually it takes two. And then I just pop on some TV. Tarot tube, hiking tube, The Office, something like that. White Lotus. But it's 78 cards and there's, oops, 4 sides per card. So what is that, 312? Is that 312? 300 and something sides. We're gonna be here a while. One card. All right, I will meet you back here when I get more done. We'll stop and take a look. Okay, working my way, one coat with the stamp pad, working my way around the deck. And I did not show it when I started, but these are, every card is different for how much like it will accept the ink or the ink will bleed on it. And this one is a little messy for me to get enough on the edge. I am getting some on the front and back. And then what you do is just take a piece of paper towel and squeeze it and run your card through your fingers with the paper towel in between, and you're going to get excess off. All right, more to go. All right, it is the next morning. I sat last night while we watched season 2 of White Lotus and edged the cards. And then I had maybe 20 some odd this morning. The corners were still a little white, so I went over just the ones that needed it again. But for the most part, it covered. I'm pretty happy with the coverage I got in one coat. I think it looks really lovely. I understand a lot of people love the gold gilding. Then you leave your gold gilding on. But this, I think, it's a better size for me. I don't love gilding. I do love a nice colored edge though, and I think it came out great. The green matches, like it looks better with the back than it does with the green of the front, but I think it just really complements it really nicely. And the color I used was Rustic Wilderness. And yeah, I think it came out great. So I'm going to collect these and then we'll close up. Much better shuffle than the previous version. I'm very happy with that. So I wouldn't have gotten that great a shuffle if I hadn't trimmed some of the size off of the cards. So yeah, no regrets. I'm glad this turned into a mod video. I was really gonna do an unboxing video, but I was so annoyed with the giant, it can't even fit in the frame, the giant box. I was so annoyed with the giant box and the minimal change in cardstock that when I opened it, it wasn't pleasant. So I'm glad we just turned it into a mod. It is one of those ones with this thing. I don't know who likes to store their decks like that. I don't. So I'm glad I have a bag for it. But last tip of the day is do not put your newly edged deck in your pretty pouch before you're confident it's like really dry. I was in the garden, that's why I have dirt. So this is an example. This is my little RWS, and I edged it in this like antique-y green, and I put it in the bag too soon. See how it's stained? It's stained the inside. So I don't want my Johnnicky bag stained, but this is the bag that is gonna be for this. And yeah, I hope someone gets something out of this. Just go slow and steady, double check before you cut, and always know that you can take more off, but you can't put more on. And everyone have a lovely, lovely day.